is about the ordination process in any denomination. I'm really going to talk about all of them, particularly PCUSA, Methodist, non-denominational, Baptist, AME, wherever you find yourself when you're thinking about entering seminary or thinking about what does it mean to pursue ordination in my denomination. The one biggest thing is the myth of ordination is what I call it, and typically what that means is the thought process of by receiving a Master of Divinity or other seminary education, upon graduating with that degree, I'm automatically eligible for ordination and I can start immediately. And that's a myth. It's false. You can graduate from seminary and not be eligible for ordination in your particular denomination, sometimes for several years, if not months, if not quite an extended period of time. So that's always a myth when coming into seminary, and we get asked those questions quite often is, once I graduate, I'll be eligible for ordination. Well, if you take the process of ordination along with your seminary education, then yes, you can graduate and seek a call as soon as you graduate, but there are two different types of tracks. So seminary and ordination, they're parallel tracks. They're not the same track. You can start seminary, finish seminary, and never go through the ordination process whatsoever. So to begin the ordination process or tract, you can actually start that before you ever begin seminary. And that's a recommendation that I give when I'm counseling with prospective students, is to begin those conversations early, as soon as you think about applying, and if you're even remotely thinking at any point in the near future that you want to be ordained, start that process, start those conversations early. It's only going to benefit you in seeking a job after seminary, as well as getting support through seminary. And these are about your ordinations across seminaries, and so it's really the ordination track is removed from each seminary in its own way. So all the seminaries know how to support you in this, to talk with you about this. So I also recommend starting those conversations with each seminary that you're looking at and how they can support you in your ordination tract. So ideally, you want your ordination tract to be almost complete by the time you finish seminary, if not complete in your denomination. So the best way to start really talking about the ordination tract along with seminary is to get into the specific denominations, as well as thinking about how long these are going to take you as you're getting your seminary education. So from this point on, we're going to assume that you have been accepted to seminary and you're going to start in a Master of Divinity program, which typically meets most ordination requirements for most denominations. So we're going to take that as an assumption. So hang on with me here, and we're going to talk about the Presbyterian Church USA first. Typically in the Presbyterian Church USA, there are 4 major phases that you will find yourself in. The first phase is the inquire phase. And like I said, begin these conversations early with your pastor and your congregation, because in the PCUSA, you have to be endorsed by your session to be an inquirer, and then you actually have to go before your particular presbytery, that region where your church is governed, to have your ordination inquiry begin. So you'll want to do both of those, and relatively quickly. And you can actually become an inquirer before you start seminary. That's ideal, because typically most presbyteries across the nation require you to be in that inquiry phase at least 1 year. And what that means is that you're going to get support from your local congregation as well as the presbytery in figuring out, what your call is going to look like by the end of your seminary career, and what that looks like for your job prospects. So these people are going to support you in many conversations. There'll be some paperwork involved in becoming an inquirer, so you'll want to get those started probably before seminary, because once you start, it's kind of a get them up and go. So you don't want to try to become an inquirer, that first semester as you're learning to be a seminarian. So start that process early. You'll get a liaison that will follow you all the way through. Some people have said, well, I have trouble with my liaison, or they're not ideal, they don't respond. There's other people that will be a part of your process that you can turn to. Typically, like I said, you'll spend a year at least in the inquire. You can spend as many years in the inquire phase as you need to. This is really just seeking out what does it mean to seek a call to ordination and ordained ministry. So take your time in this phase. You have plenty of time. The second phase, however, is candidacy. Again, you'll fill out some paperwork. You'll have some conversations with your congregation, your local pastor, as well as the presbytery again. You also spend a year in this candidacy phase, and there's quite a few requirements that need to be met for ordination. One of them is dependent upon your presbytery, whether or not you need to take clinical pastoral education and have a unit of that. There'll be some sermon requirements typically across the presbyteries to preach a sermon in a worshiping context of sorts. So there's multiple parts to each phase. The minimum to spend in candidacy as well is 1 year. So you'll want to make sure that you are matching up your inquiry and candidacy phases, that when you reach that third year in seminary, that you're along that path and in that track. Something else that typically happens in the inquiry phase is you take your first ordination exam, the Bible content exam. Relatively easy per se ordination exam, 100-question multiple choice answer. In the candidacy phase, you typically take your other 4 ordination exams. And so there's quite a bit involved in each phase, and the presbytery and your local congregation and hopefully your local pastor can also help guide you in helping you really begin these 2 phases when it's appropriate for you to, so that by the time you've obtained your Master of Divinity degree, you will be ready to seek a call, which is that third phase, when you get the final okay that says, yes, you've completed all of our requirements, you've completed CPE, you've preached a sermon, you've passed all your ordination exams, now you're ready to go out and seek a church. And you want that third phase to typically, ideally, be in that fall semester of your senior year in seminary. If you can get certified ready to seek a call, then you can spend the entire spring semester of your senior year seeking a call, looking for a church, doing interviews, going out and seeing what's available. And that's ideal. Typically, that's not how it happens for most people. They end up either candidacy takes a little bit longer than they anticipated, or they wait until after graduation to do CPE. Any of those kind of requirements will prolong those call phases. So ideally, you'd want to get in that certified ready to seek that fall semester of your senior year. That way, by spring, you're already searching for a call. That way, you can actually obtain a call while you're a senior and finishing out your Master of Divinity degree, and then you have a job right out of seminary. And that fourth phase is receiving that call, which means the congregation has called you, you have accepted that call, you'll go through some examinations by that presbytery that church has extended you a call. So there's quite a few intricate details, and I've included in the PowerPoint presentation a helpful handbook by San Gabriel Presbyterian Presbytery. And it's not a be-all, end-all for all presbyteries. Like I said, depending on your presbytery will depend on your requirements in each phase, and especially when you get in that third and fourth phase for the presbytery that you receive a call in. So, but it's a nice handbook that helps you kind of see where the Committee on Preparation for Ministry is coming from. And it gives you the outlines of what's required. But definitely check with your presbytery, your local pastor, and your congregation. These conversations that you have will be intricate to your ordination process. Let me just take a minute and advise the Presbyterian Church USA people seeking ordination. One thing that I think is also a myth here for us in this particular denomination is that the initiative lies on the Committee on Preparation for Ministry to make sure you get through the ordination process. And that's a huge myth. The initiative to get you through your ordination process really lies on your shoulders, and how quickly and how discernful you are in your process. You can move as quickly through this process as quickly as you move through your discernment. And the initiative is on you to begin the candidacy phase, to begin the inquire phase, to begin those conversations with your pastor, your congregation, and the presbytery. Your ordination process really, lies on your shoulders and how quickly you can do these things and how prepared you are. So I advise you to don't just wait for CPM or your pastor or your congregation or your liaison to contact you. You be the first one in that ordination process. So my PCUSA brothers and sisters, this phase minimum will take you 2 years. It could take you up to 20 years. I've known people from 2 to 20, so know that you have time to spend in this process as long as you need, but don't let the process hinder you as well. So moving on to the United Methodists. We have United Methodists who study with us at our PCUSA seminaries, and they are seeking ordination. For our brothers and sisters in the United Methodist, there are multiple phases that you go through, and your process is a minimum typically of 4 years. So you'll spend quite a bit of time in your process, and you'll see the first phase is an inquiring candidate phase that you'll see very similar to the PCUSA. And then you begin your candidacy, and in this beginning and declaring and being certified a candidate in the United Methodist Church, there are lots of writing as well. There are exams as well for you, very different than the PCUSA ordination exams, but ordination exams nonetheless. Once you're certified to be a candidate, things start moving along for you. You'll verify different types of candidacy, and you'll continue in this and complete that phase 2, and that typically will be at least a 2, if not 3-year process for you. And then typically after you've received your Master of Divinity and completed that phase, you will typically go before your conference in your particular region and become commissioned to ministry of elder or deacon as a provisional member. And what that means for you is that you will have 2 years to be a provisional member where you're almost like on probation. You're learning the ins and outs of being a member of the ministry in the United Methodist Church. And it's a beautiful commissioning service that they do in each conference. I've been a witness of several, and it's a great time, especially after those 2 years when you come back and you are officially now an elder and deacon in a lot of ways. And one helpful website is I've included on the PowerPoint presentation Steps into Ordained Ministry for our United Methodists, and it clearly goes through each detailed candidacy phase, inquiring candidate. It tells you exactly what's required of you, written responses, whether or not you need to go before conference. You are also assigned a mentor throughout your process, and I think both the United Methodist and PCUSA realize that these liaison and mentors are good conversational partners, helpful in answering questions. So definitely use your mentor liaison in those ways. Moving on, what if you're not PCUSA and United Methodist, but you come to study with us at a PCUSA seminary and are seeking ordination? In those, there are also particulars. Each denomination, whether you're Baptist, AME, Pentecostal, United Church of Christ, they have certain requirements as well, but they're a little bit more particular depending upon the congregation or region you're a part of, depending on your governing board, so to speak. So begin those conversations just like if you were PCUSA or United Methodist with your pastor and congregation, saying, I feel in my discernment process that I'm seeking ordination, and what will be the requirements as you're continuing your seminary education. And you may already be ordained when you enter seminary, but you've been asked to get a master's level education of some sort to continue that ordination process for you, and that's okay. So know that coming in that, if you come out of these traditions and you are already ordained, that's perfectly fine for the seminaries. We don't have a problem with that, but just know that the ordination process, again, falls on your initiative to take those conversations and make those happen. Also, what about our non-denominational brothers and sisters who are seeking ordination at a PCUSA seminary. Again, it's going to be particular to your regional governing board, and that may be at the local congregational level where it's between your pastor and your congregation. One I'm thinking of is Disciples of Christ. Those are very much in the local congregations and how those happen. So begin again your conversations with your pastor and your congregation, and you'll want to check what education will be required. It may not be a Master of Divinity for some of the non-denominational members. It may be one of our 2-year master's level programs that meet your requirements. Very much in my conversations with some Pentecostals and non-denominational, our 2-year Master of Ministry Practice meets the requirements for ordination. So begin those conversations, begin knowing what you need to do on the education side, the seminary track side, but also what requirements are going to be required of you on the ordination side. And it may be that it takes you no time and you enter seminary as an ordained pastor, or it may take you a minimum of 2 years in the PCUSA, up to how many ever years it takes you. United Methodist, it takes you, it seems, the longest to make that ordination track come to fruition. So know that the earlier you start these conversations, the more easier it is to find help and have time as you're doing your seminary education to become ordained. And that's ideally what you want, is that by the end of when you're graduating, walking across the stage or church or wherever you're at graduating, that you are ready to seek out a church as you go, because you're going to be high on adrenaline and excited about the ministry you can go out to, and you don't want your ordination process to be limiting to you because you're not ready in whatever phase or whatever place you find yourself. You want to have them meet so that you can start the ground running after you graduate. So any of our seminaries have officers who can talk to you about this, who are very versed in the ordination process, and we're always happy to talk to you about that and walk you through what it means to become ordained and figure out how that process is going to work and point you in the right directions to have those conversations. Just the last tidbit of information. Begin conversations no matter your denomination affiliation with your pastor and congregation. It's always going to start at the local level, no matter what denomination you're a part of, and then it'll blossom from there. Start the process early, even if you think you might not finish the ordination process. It's easier to say, no, in my discernment, I feel that I'm not being ordained or called to be ordained ministry, than it is to say, I'm a middler in seminary and now I feel called to ordain ministry. Like I said, start early if you can, if that's in your discernment process. And like I said, each seminary has staff that can help you walk through this ordination process. Many of us have been through it ourselves, or had conversations in this way. So lean on those people to help guide you and along the process. And many happy times as you seek and discern whether you're being called to ordain ministry. And we hope to see you serving in a church right after graduation. Thanks, and have a great day.